You're just too marvelous for words, like glorious, glamorous, and I don't stand by amorous. It's all too wonderful, I never find the words that say enough, tell enough. I mean, they're just not swell enough. You're much too much and just too very, very to ever be in Webster's dictionary. And so I'm borrowing a love song from the birds to tell you that you're marvelous. You're too marvelous. You're too marvelous for words, like glorious and glamorous, and that old standby amorous. It's all too wonderful, I never find the words that say enough, tell enough. I mean, they're just not swell enough. You're much too much and just too very, very to ever be in Webster's dictionary. And so I'm borrowing a love song from the birds to tell you that you're too marvelous for words. Thomas Schatz. Too marvelous for words, like glorious and glamorous, and that old standby amorous. It's all too wonderful, I never find the words that say enough or tell enough. I mean, they're just not swell enough. You're much too much and just too very, very to ever be in Webster's dictionary, and so I'm borrowing a love song from the birds to tell you that you're marvelous. Oh, to tell you you're incredible, to tell you you're too marvelous for words. Thank you very much.
This is a tune that closed the album, and it's called Timba de la Buena. Timba is the latest rhythm that was invented in Cuba a few years ago, and they call it timba. T-I-M-B-A, timba. And this is the new timba, but we really need your collaboration. I would love to see you all dancing here tonight, shaking your booty. Shake it, baby, shake it. Y dice así, ¡hey! Vengo tocando timba de la buena, pa' que luego se baila como quiera. Vengo tocando timba de la buena, pa' que luego se baila. La timba cubana se baila, se baila, se baila como quiera. Solo menea la cadera, menea la cintura. se baila como quiera. Ando tocando timba de la buena, pa' que locos bailan. Hello, hello. One more time. Will Brown on guitar. Will Brown. Mike Tucker on the saxophone. Mike Tucker. Danny Feldman on percussion. Danny Feldman. Mark Walker on the drum. Mark Walker. Max Gurr on the bass. Max Gurr. Maxwell Hamer on the piano. Maxwell Hamer. Very soft. Soft. Thank you.
Time to get your collar pressed. Time to get yourself all dressed. Time to get your shiny dance shoes on, 'cause everybody's jumping at JAX. All the kids are coming down just to dig the swinging sound. You can hear the band from miles away, 'cause everybody's jumping at JAX. Here's a little well-known secret. Sure as there's the sky above,
nothing could be any sweeter
than dancing with the one you love. When life is like a sour note, here's a happy antidote. Come to where the party never ends, 'cause everybody's jumping at JAX.
Good evening, Campus JAX. Would you please join me in welcoming the Jonathan Stout Trio?
Check, check. Hello and welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. That was a little tune called I Can't Believe That You're in Love With Me. That's Phil Krozak on the tenor saxophone and clarinet. Give it up for him. Our good friend Dave Miller on that big bass. And hi, my name is Jonathan Stout. Thank you so much for being here, guys. I like both kinds of music, acoustic and electric. So I'm going to do a little bit of acoustic guitar, a little bit of electric guitar. I love treating them as two kind of separate instruments. My hero on the acoustic guitar was this guy, Allan Reuss, who was one of Benny Goodman's guitar players from 1935 to 1938. You guys aren't taking notes? There will be a quiz later. And it is open notes, so you can take your notes. But 1935 to 1938. But he had this amazing way of playing these chord solos. So every time I do one of those acoustic chord solos, I'm just ripping off Allan Reuss. So you can take that home, and you too can go find all of Allan Reuss's very obscure solos and learn all of them. And then you too can rip off Allan Reuss. But I also like the electric guitar. And my hero on the electric guitar was a guy named Charlie Christian. And he also played with Benny Goodman from 1939 to 1941. Again, just write that down. But I love treating them as two separate instruments because the electric guitar really allows you to do all these cool things, but then the timbre of the acoustic guitar has its own magic, and I hate to lose the baby with the bathwater, so to speak. So we're going to switch it up next and do a Charlie Christian-related tune. Basically, Charlie Christian was this young black musician, only 22 or 23 years old, in Oklahoma City. And Mary Lou Williams, the great pianist and arranger, had tipped off John Hammond about this great electric guitar player. And so John Hammond drove out to Oklahoma City, heard Charlie on a Saturday night, and was so enamored with him, he said, "You're going to go join the Benny Goodman Band." And he put him on a train on Monday morning and didn't tell Benny. And Charlie arrived in Los Angeles on Wednesday, and there was a sort of awkward audition process where Benny didn't even let him plug in. He didn't realize this was going to be the soloist that was going to light a fire under his butt for the next 2 years and really inspire him. So he kind of blew him off at that audition, but the guys in the band thought that wasn't cool, so they snuck him on stage that night at the Victor Hugo restaurant in Beverly Hills. And when Benny saw this interloper on his stage, he flashed him his famous ray. He had this death ray stare that could bore a hole in you. And he called a tune that he assumed that Charlie wouldn't know. But of course, Charlie did know it, and the story goes that he played 47 minutes of solos on that tune. I am not going to play 47 minutes of solos on this tune, but this is the tune that Benny tried to trick him with, but as it turns out, Charlie knocked him out, and immediately they joined forces together, and they ended up recording this at the Benny Goodman Sextet first recording session in September of that year, so just like a month and a half later. So here is a tune called Rose Room. I have a feeling this mic stand is going to keep doing this to me, where it's going to get a little bit looser as the night goes on. But other than the occasional announcement, I think it only needs to last to this next song. Up next, we're going to do something from 1925. This is a beautiful little tune, and it contains one of my favorite things to say to your sweetie pie. You know, you can say, oh, you're pretty, you're beautiful, you're lovely, you're handsome, whatever. This is, ooh, you're granulated. You can use that. It is hot. That's right. That's right. Yeah, use that with your kids. I'm sure they'll love it. But from 1925, here's a beautiful tune called Sugar. And there's a couple different jazz sugars, but this one is subtitled That Sugar Baby of Mine. So I'll just play a 4-bar intro as written. Feel free to play. Don't worry about the intro. I'll play a 4-bar intro and then we're in, and I'll sing it. Let's try that again, just with not bumping my nose into the microphone stand. Sugar, I call my baby my sugar, and I'm so sweet on my sugar. That sugar baby of mine, she's confectionery funny. She never asks for my money, and all I can give her is honey that I can get anytime. I take a million trips to her lips if I were a bee, but then she's sweeter than any candy to me. Oh, she's granulated sugar. I call my honey my sugar, and I'd never maybe my sugar. That sugar baby of mine, all mine. Sugar, that sugar baby of mine. We're gonna do another old tune for you and kick up the tempo just a little bit. This is kind of one of the lowest hanging of traditional jazz fruit, but it's a tune that I just absolutely love blowing on. So I hope you'll indulge me. But this is a little tune called "I Can't Give You Anything But Love." All right. Yeah, you play It's fun. I come from the swing dance world. That's where I get to play most often. And, you know, the songs are generally a lot tighter and shorter. And unless you've asked a stranger to dance and, you know, thought like, oh, this will be a lovely experience. And then it turns out, oh, you are not physically compatible in any way whatsoever. And you are stuck together until that song is over. Until you've had that experience, you know, I feel like sometimes it's like, yeah, why not? Let's play 5 more choruses on that song. And once you have that experience, you're like, oh, yeah, that's why 3 minutes is a good length for that stuff. But on this next one, we'll stretch out a little bit more. We'll take it up yet another notch and do, of course, the great Fats Waller classic, Honeysuckle Rose. My hero, Allan Reuss, actually got featured on some air checks with Harry James in about 1945 playing this song. So I have stolen all of those licks and will play all of them for you. So if you're you know, have your Allan Reuss bingo card, you're more than welcome to check off all. Oh, he did that one. Okay, perfect. But this is a great tune, Honeysuckle Rose. Right. Well, after a hot one like that, I always like to cool it down for a little bit and have a little bit of a refreshment. Cheers, everybody. The next tune we're going to do is a beautiful ballad. I don't sing this song, and I don't really suggest singing the lyrics because it sort of celebrates the myth of a South that never existed. So I'm not a fan of the lyrics of this tune, but it's a really beautiful melody. And so I want to play for you the melody. It's a little something called the Louisiana Fairy Tale. All right. I think that's such a beautiful tune. We're going to pick it back up a little bit and do another classic. This is called Exactly Like You. We all see what that four-bar introduction says? Yeah. 1 bar each. That make sense? Yeah. And then I got, so 4 bars to fill, and then I'll take that. 1, 2, 1, For our next tune, we're going to do something very different. All of the songs that we've just played for you are 100 years old. Some of them might be 70 years old. But we're going to do something a little bit different, which is play a song that's barely 5 years old. I don't think of myself as much of a songwriter. I definitely know that there's an Irving Berlin and a Duke Ellington, and between the two of them, you know, that's enough. You've got a whole career right there just playing tunes by those cats. And not to mention the billions of other songwriters that wrote beautiful things like Hoagie Carmichael or whoever else. But a good friend of mine was being interviewed on a podcast, and she was talking about trying to find her place in the Lindy Hop world as a swing dancer who wanted to honor the traditions of the people that came before her, but, you know, where does that leave me? And so I've always felt exactly the same way she did, which is like, I'm just going to do what the old cats did because it's beautiful and I feel like it's a little underrepresented. But she pointed out that you can't keep a tradition alive merely by reenacting it. You have to contribute to it. You have to participate in it. And to that end, every once in a while, I'll write an original tune. And so we're going to play a couple of those for you. The first one of those is coming up right now. This is a little tune that I wrote for a project that a friend of mine did. And basically, like, that's the only time I write stuff is when I've got a project and they can't license an old song, so I have to make a new one. And as it turns out, some of these stick after a while, and that's kind of nice. So we're going to do a little tune called Bouncin' with Bumpus. This next original tune is something that I wrote during the pandemic. Some friends of ours run a little swing dance hall in Baltimore, Maryland. And at the beginning of the pandemic, they were doing a telethon, but it wasn't to save their business. It was actually just to get their employees paid because they weren't able to do anything and all their employees were SOL. And so rather than even just trying to save their business, they were like, we want to get our employees out of trouble as best we can. So they did a little telethon online, and I said, you guys really do a lot for old jazz music, and I'd love to contribute. Could I, do something? They're like, yeah, sure, if you want to give us a track, we can play it on the thing. And so I wrote a little 2-guitar version of this that I recorded on my computer. And ever since then, it's been sort of a part of the Campus 5 book that we play with our band, the Campus 5, and I've ended up arranging it for our big band as well. But this is dedicated to a place in Baltimore called the Mobtown Ballroom, and so this is a tune called The Mobtown All Out. And it's sort of a dedication to sort of like the right on the edge of bebop, but not quite falling over stuff that I like. I like to call that proto-bop. Again, you can write that down, proto-bop. So very 1944, 1945, and inspired by people like Al Hendrickson and Irving Ashby and stuff like that. So here's the Mobtown All Out. Thank you so much. Our last original tune for now is very on topic. So I wrote this little thing as sort of a solo guitar exercise. That whole Allan Reuss thing on the acoustic guitar does not work in minor keys. I don't know why. It's just something that, like, it doesn't work in minor keys. And so I had to write a bunch of licks to figure out how to play in minor keys in that style. And so my little etude that I ended up writing to come up with ideas of how to play minor key stuff ended up becoming this tune. And so I wrote it as a solo guitar piece during the pandemic and kind of envisioned it as maybe like a guitar and bass duet, but then I ended up arranging it for the Campus 5. We did a record called Hummin' to Myself that we recorded just as we were coming out of things where you could get tested and stuff. And so we were able to sort of all mask up but play in a studio together. It's a big deal to get to do that. It really meant a lot. But this is one of the things that, without ever getting to like A/B test it or beta test it, we just kind of went into the studio and played it. But it's become a standard part of our sets, and people seem to like it. So I'm always happy to oblige. But it's a minor key song, and I wrote it in the month of October back in 2020. And so I was trying to find a spooky title for this. So again, going with the lowest hanging of possible fruit, the most obvious thing I could call this. This is called Trick or Treat. Trick or Treat. We're going to pick up the tempo again and do another kind of great old-timey tune. This wasn't actually written that long ago, but it's definitely got sort of a capital D Dixieland reputation. But it was also played by people like Artie Shaw, and it's a kind of fun one to blow over. So we'll play for you now, At Sundown. We're going to kick up the tempo one more notch and do another kind of old-timey tune. I think a lot about the Benny Goodman small groups because I think a lot about Charlie Christian, and that was pretty much the only thing he played in his very short career. For anybody that doesn't know, I mentioned Charlie Christian. Basically, he was the first important electric guitar player. He He wasn't the first person to ever do it, but you can pretty fairly say he was the first person that anyone actually gave a crap that played it. And you know, not just that they took notice. Literally, overnight, they started selling electric guitars because that was the new thing. I mentioned that John Hammond just, you know, found him in Oklahoma City on a Saturday night, heard him play, put him on a train on Monday morning. Wednesday, he arrived here in Los Angeles and had this famous audition, and then they play Rose Room, and Benny immediately falls in love with him. That was Wednesday. Saturday night, there's a live broadcast, and they play the song Flying Home, one of the big hits of the Benny Goodman Sextet, exactly like they recorded. He's been in the band 3 days. And it was so popular that they had to play it again 3 weeks later. And back then, you couldn't just email what your feedback to the radio. You had to write a letter. So the fact that they got so many letters within 3 weeks that they had to play this song again was a big deal. So, it was a big deal to have this brand new novelty instrument, the electric guitar, all of a sudden played in a way that knocked everybody's socks off. But one of the things about Benny is when he had these small groups, it was sort of a way for him to fight back against racist jerks who wouldn't let him have black musicians in his band. Because basically in 1935, Benny, is just about to break it big, and he hears this piano player, Teddy Wilson, great black piano player, and he's like, I want to hire Teddy Wilson, and racists are like, no, you can't do that. But he figures out a way to have Teddy Wilson join as a feature player. So Gene Krupa, the star drummer, and Benny would go out in between the band breaks or in the middle of a set and do a feature number with this piano player, Teddy Wilson. Well, just a little bit later on, they run into this drummer, Lionel Hampton, who just happened to have played the vibraphone on a Louis Armstrong record a couple of years before, and they heard him play this new instrument, the vibraphone, and they said, holy crap, that's amazing. Let's add him to it, and that became the Benny Goodman Quartet, and they made just some of my favorite records of all time. Well, it was a similar thing when Charlie Christian rolled around. Racist jerks basically wouldn't allow a young black guitar player to be the official guitar player in the band, so they would have a sextet as like sort of a breakout group. And the funny thing is, it worked because while Charlie was still, alive, he had a very short life. He died of tuberculosis after only 2 years of making music with Benny. So by 1941, he had already taken 6. So that was only 1939 to 1941. Very short, kind of Jimi Hendrix-like career. But by the time Charlie was kind of taking sick, Benny straight up hired Duke Ellington's all-star trumpet player Cootie Williams, and he was just a regular member of the band at that point. So, Benny kind of had the last laugh on racist jerks. So I think we can all drink to that. But one of the things about these small groups is this was the time that Benny was fired up and wanted to throw down. So a lot of times when he would do these small groups, he would pick kind of good tunes that he just wanted to rip on and blow on. And this is another example of one of those. It's another old-timey tune. We've stolen the arrangement from the Goodman Sextet, but I'm going to do the Allan Reuss chord thing on it also. But this is their version from 1939 of the Chic of Araby. And I always thought this might be the verse to the tune, but it's actually just this really cool intro that they came up with. So here you go. Here's the Chic of Araby. We're going to cool it down after that one and do one of the tunes that the Benny Goodman Quartet that I just mentioned a second ago made famous, or it was probably famous before them, but I think of it as kind of the most iconic version of this song. It's called Moonglow. I have a band called the Grand Slam Sextet, where basically all we play is the clarinet, vibraphone, guitar, Benny Goodman small group stuff. When we do a quartet tune, usually the bass player and I will go enjoy a beverage for a song. But for Moonglow, I like to imagine that Charlie Christian had gotten to play on that track somehow. And I just love the idea of getting to hear that because I love Charlie's playing on ballads. So we're going to play for you now Moonglow, kind of imagining if Charlie Christian had wandered over and do a Benny Goodman quartet session. By the way, that's Phil Krozak on the tenor saxophone and clarinet. That's Dave Miller on the big bass. I'm Jonathan Stout. All right, here is Moonglow. We got, I think, 3 more tunes for you. The next one we're going to do is another good old-time jazz tune. It's funny, if I call this tune in more modern settings, they assume it's going to be played in the key of A flat, because that was Charlie Parker's key, especially when he wrote his contrafact Donna Lee over it. But we're going to play it in the good old-time key of F, and this is, of course, the tune Back Home Again in Indiana. just like we rehearsed it. We're going to do one more original tune. This is another very inspired by Charlie Christian tune. It's called The Millhouse Stomp. If you're wondering why I named a song after Richard Nixon's middle name, you're incorrect. That is not why I named the song that. I happen to live on a street called El Molino in Pasadena, which is Spanish for the mill, and trying to come up with a name for this house that we ended up in. I was trying to make it a thing where we called it the Mill House. That didn't stick. I tried so hard to make fetch happen, and fetch just did not happen in this particular case. But it ended up being the name of this song, and it's been something that we, ever since I wrote it a couple of years ago, it's been sort of at every Campus 5 gig ever since. And it's just a nice E-flat rhythm changes with the honeysuckle bridge. You know, nothing crazy, but very much inspired by the kind of riffy stuff that Charlie Christian would write for the Goodman Sextet. So here is the Millhouse Stomp. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for digging all of this stuff. We really appreciate you coming out. You can always find me at campus5.com and on Instagram at campus5 and on Facebook at the Jonathan Stout Swing Guitar page. We can't wait to do another event here. I know I'm going to probably talk to the folks here about doing my annual Charlie Christian concert here next August or next, hopefully, late July. But we have one more tune for you before we go. Give it up for Phil Krozak one more time on the tenor saxophone and clarinet. Give it up for Dave Miller on the big bass. And my name is Jonathan Stout. All right, so for our next tune, or for our last tune rather, this is a tune that is near and dear to my heart. I told you I really like this guy, Charlie Christian, right? Like a lot. It's kind of a lot. What is my son's name? Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. I did manage, and I really love Allan Reuss, also that chord melody guy. Those are my two heroes. And I managed to track down Allan Reuss's main guitar in London, England, and I made friends with its owner, and I've gotten to play it several times, and the last time he actually let me take it on 4 gigs around London, so I'm in the tube carrying this 1938 Gibson L5, because that's one of the holy grails as far as I'm concerned of guitars. That was on 1 million sessions with Sinatra. A friend of mine actually found on eBay randomly Allan Reuss's granddaughter put up his jewelry box on eBay, and it was his cufflinks that said AR that matched the guitar, and there was a tie pin that said Merry Christmas 1946, Axel and Frank. Yeah, that one, Frank Sinatra. So it was Axel Stordahl, his arranger, and Frank Sinatra. Basically everybody that had played with them in 1946 got a solid gold tie pin. So it's really cool to connect with somebody's artifacts like that, especially because I'm of the age where I didn't get to see all of my heroes, and many of these people, at least the ones I care about, like Allan Reuss and Charlie Christian, there really isn't much video of. There's no video of Charlie. There's at least a little video of Allan, but almost none of it where he's actually playing what you're hearing. So it's when you get to play one of their touchstones, it's really important. Well, with Charlie, there's only one guitar that has been verified out there that they've been able to find that they can show as having belonged to him and that he actually played. And he played a model just like this one. This is a 1937. His was also a 1937. But he played this model a bunch when he started. And about 6 months into his public career, Gibson gave him a nicer one called an ES-250. This is an ES-150. Again, this will be on the test. But they gave him a nicer one called an ES-250. Those guitars are so rare, they only made about 25 or 30 of them. And so already they're so collectible and, in the hands of people with more money than I will ever dream of having. But one time somebody found one of these ES-250s and looked at the serial number and checked the Gibson shipping ledgers, and sure enough, that was sent to Charlie Christian in April of 1940. And he ended up playing it on tunes like Six Appeal, Good Enough to Keep, which became Airmail Special, and several other things. And he presumably played it through the whole summer before sending it back to Gibson in the fall for repairs and getting another one. But that guitar lives in a museum, and it probably should, because if you Google Allan Reuss, I'm the 3rd search result. That's not right. It shouldn't be that way, but that's how obscure Allan Reuss is. Charlie Christian is the father of the electric guitar and kind of one of the most famous guitar players of all time. It makes sense that that guitar is in a museum, and it's been a dream of mine to get to play that guitar for 1 billion years. And but I'm not somebody like George Benson, who happens to be doing a concert at that museum where they'll bring the guitar out and let me play it, or somebody like John Jorgensen or Julian Lodge or somebody like that. But I was in New York a month and a half ago, and I was there to play for a museum exhibition for the great guitar luthier John Monteleone. I highly recommend the documentary about him, The Chisels Are Calling, which you can get on Amazon. It's a good rental. But I was there to play his guitars, and it was a real honor to get to play his world-class instruments. They're amazing. And he had just happened to have a guitar festival a couple weeks before that, and they'd brought out the Charlie guitar, the one that lives in a museum. And I was telling him, like, you know, I'm so bummed that I didn't somehow manage to fly myself to New York to be there that weekend to see that guitar, because that's really, like, you know, the holy grail to me. And he says to me, well, you know, I think it's still in the area. And I immediately, like, was overcome in his workshop. And I was trying to play it cool because I was there at his largesse and I didn't want to, like, fanboy out over somebody else's guitar. And he said, you know, I bet I can have them bring it to the show. I was like, what? And it occurred to me we were doing a concert for his exhibition about the history of the archtop guitar, and that Charlie Christian's ES-250 would probably be the greatest finale for a show of that type. So I texted him in the car afterwards. I said, you know, if it happens to show up, I realize that'll be a perfect finale. But, you know, I also didn't want to, like, you know, not honor his stuff. And I said, and then after that, we'll do a finale, like an encore of a beautiful song on your first guitar and your last guitar. And he either didn't send a response or he said, I'll see what I can do. But we're at the museum, and some guy in T-shirts and shorts walks in with a 1990s Gibson-era case. He just kind of hands it to one of the museum folks and says, okay, I'll see you later. And then it dawned on me what was in the case. It was Charlie Christian's guitar. And I got to play it. I got to see it. I got to, like, use it on the gig and play it. And I can think of no better song to close our concert with tonight than the song that I closed that concert with on Charlie Christian's actual guitar. This is a tune from 1940. He doesn't get credit for writing it, but I promise a guitar player wrote at least a bunch of the riffs that you're going to hear in this tune. And that was very common, that somebody like Charlie might not get credit for composing a lot of these tunes, things like Flying Home and 7 Come 11. But I think Charlie probably wrote a bunch of this. Count Basie was their special guest piano player on this session with the Goodman Sextet, and Basie liked the tune enough that he ended up recording his own version with his big band later that year. But so we'll play for you our last song, and this is called Gone with What Wind? Again, thank you guys so much. Phil Krozak on the tenor saxophone and clarinet. Dave Miller on the bass. My name is Jonathan Stout. I do have some CDs for sale up front. If you're one of those thoroughly cashless folks, I've also got QR codes for you. And there is that little jar there. So feel free, if you had a particularly good time and you feel like expressing that in monetary form, you can do that either with the QR codes or in the bucket. Anyway, we hope to see you again real soon. My name is Jonathan Stout. Thanks, everybody.